Hello and welcome to The Thing About Golf, the podcast series from Golf Australia magazine that tries to answer that eternal question of why this game is so addictive for so many. My name's Rod Murray, and alongside my colleague John Huggan, we take turns at bringing you in-depth discussion with golfers from every imaginable level of the game. And on episode 43, that means going straight to the top as Hucky sits down with one of the most interesting thinkers in the game today and perhaps ever, European Ryder Cup captain and three-time major winner, Padraig Harrington. Huggy joins me now to give a little teaser of what's to come. I can say, having heard almost the whole chat already, it is absolutely worth sticking around for. Huggy, I don't think I've yet heard a bad interview with Harrington. This one's as good as any, if not better. But let's start with your earliest memories. Have you been covering the game for a long time? What do you recall about the first time you heard the name of this kid Harrington from Ireland?
Well, he was one of the top amateurs for longer than most. I mean, he points out in the podcast that he didn't play in a pro event till he was 24 years old. Remarkably, he played in 3 Walker Cups before he turned pro, which is very, very unusual these days for anybody that isn't a lifelong amateur. But that was my first memory of him, was back when he was one of the stud amateurs in Irish golf. I mean, he loves to point out that he went about 18 months without, not winning a tournament in Ireland. He won every stroke play event and never lost a single playing for Ireland and all kinds of stuff. So he was a star. He played in 91, 93, 95 Walker Cups before he turned pro and managed to get himself an accountancy degree while he was doing that as well. So before he turned pro.
He is always a good interview. As I said, I really have not ever heard a done interview with Harrington. He's an unconventional thinker, isn't he? And at every turn, and this chat is the same, you find yourself thinking, hang on, that can't be right. I've never thought about it that way. But in fact, he is right. He's a really interesting thinker, isn't he?
Yeah. He circles every subject from, he comes at it from every angle. And for people who don't like to listen to me, this is the ideal podcast because I don't think I do much talking. It's a lot of listening when Padraig gets going, but he's a fascinating character, as you say.
Yeah, indeed. Did people think back then, was he one of those players who was the can't miss kid, this guy's going to win majors, or was he just a guy who could possibly win majors?
No, I mean, he was far from it. I mean, he looked like he was going to have a nice career. And he won the Spanish Open very early on in his pro career. But nobody thought he was going to be a world beater or a Ryder Cup player, maybe a Ryder Cup player once or twice, but never a star of Ryder Cups, or certainly not winning majors. Because he had, as we say in the podcast, I think he had everything you need to be a great golfer, except he didn't hit the ball well enough. His game as an amateur was built. He was a perfect match player because he was annoying. He didn't hit the ball that well, but he got up and down from everywhere and just beat people. But that wasn't going to cut the mustard as a pro, or certainly not at the very highest level. So he took himself off to Bob Torrance, the late Bob Torrance, father of Sam, and that was the one thing that he needed. Bob gave him. Bob gave him a swing that he could hit the ball better or well enough to take advantage of his short game, his putting, and his mental, strengths. As I say, he had everything except the ball striking, and Bob gave him that. That made the difference.
It's quintessentially Harrington, that isn't. He had everything except the ability to hit the ball well. Exactly. That sums Harrington up in a nutshell. What's he standing in the game now, Huggy, in European golf? Obviously, he's the Ryder Cup captain. That gives you a certain standing. But is he the guy that other guys go to for advice? He's not short or shy in giving opinions about stuff, is he?
No, and he's very bright, obviously. I have to imagine that he is one of those go-to guys. I think he's been an assistant captain in the Ryder Cup 3 times already. And I'm sure he was one of the guys, certainly as he became more experienced, that the captains of Ryder Cup teams that he was playing in went to get his opinion on things. So yes, I mean, he's, as you say, plus he's got an opinion on everything. But yeah, I mean, I've always liked him as well. I think he's far more importantly, maybe he's a likable human being, and he's got a lovely wife, Caroline. She's terrific as well. She's always got time for people. They're a well matched pair, and they're just. He's just a good guy. I mean, that's the bottom line. He's a good guy.
We're talking about him like he's some sort of elder statesman. He finished 4th at the PGA just last week behind a 50-year-old Phil Mickelson. So he's probably far from.
Well, he's 49. He's closing in on 50. He'll be 50 on I think it's the last day of August. Is his birthday. So the senior PGA is going on in America this week. Harrington will be playing in that next year, I've no doubt, and I wouldn't be surprised if he won it.
Indeed. Well, I think we were just saying before we turned on the record button here, what I would absolutely love, Huggy, would have 2 microphones, one for Harrington, one for Jeff Ogilvy, and just leave the room, because I think I've heard both of them referred to as the best interview in golf, and I reckon it's probably a playoff. They're both fantastic, and it's been fantastic to listen to you on today. Thanks for joining us to have a chat, and really can't recommend enough that the listeners stick around, but thanks for your time this morning.
No problem. My pleasure. Padraig Harrington, welcome to the Thing About Golf podcast. I normally start these things by asking the obvious question, what is the thing about golf for you? But I'm going to break with tradition, I think, in view of recent events, and ask you, what did the 49-year-old Padraig Harrington make of the 50-year-old Phil Mickelson winning the US PGA last week?
I suppose it was it from selfish reasons, it was a positive. When you see somebody else winning, it makes it more tangible, it makes it real. I think when I won my first major, I always said at the time that Michael Campbell had won the US Open. I played a lot of practice rounds with Michael Campbell. We played a lot of golf, and it just made it more realistic that I could go on and win a major. So, yeah, maybe Phil's win could help me believe that it's possible. But it was phenomenal what he did. And it takes his personality, because, as you get older, you lose your innocence. You have that scar tissue. And Phil has it. Don't believe that Phil doesn't stand that on the tee or anywhere else and not have the fears and that we all get as we get a little older. I think, though, he refuses to bow to that weakness. And I think I was explaining it. He hit it in the water on 13 on Saturday on the 13th hole on the right. And people would say, "Oh well, the whole of the golf course is on the left," but Phil's personality would refuse to let him miss left, because that would be weak. Weak that he couldn't handle. He had to go. He has to go for it, and he does. It does cause him problems at times, because he, as I said, he will always miss in the worst spot because he's afraid of bailing out into the a choking spot. Let's say. Yeah. Hitting in the water is not choking. Hitting it safe would have been choking.
Yeah, so there's a bit of ego involved in that.
I think it's the only way he knows. It's the only way I would know too. That as I said, it's just there's somebody could draw a graph of that equilibrium, of that sweet spot of, hey, experience is good. You're gaining experience, but innocence is also good. And you're losing that. At some point they cross, and after that, it's no use being more experienced. And I think, I would be in the same boat as Phil in that we overthink things. We just make it a little harder than we need to. But sometimes you just can't unsee something, and that's when you get to our age, physically I can hit all the golf shots, and so can Phil. That I maybe even better than I could have back in the day. But mentally, there's just that little bit of scar tissue. I know myself. I only finished 4 shots back, and I put it so tentatively on Sunday all the way through. Yeah, and you just wish you could open up and just, like, logically, I could tell you what to do, but actually doing it is a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it's the putting where that kind of shows up first, isn't it? Is that fair to say?
Oh, I would think so, yes. Yeah, but everybody gets it a little different. You get guys who lose their driving, some guys lose their chipping. Definitely the putting. I know that 2013 it started to hit me on the putting, and only this year I started putting a bit better. First time this year I put it a lot better on my short putts this year. But strangely enough, now I was very dodgy on my long putts at Kiawah Island from 20 feet. I don't think I made a comfortable stroke for a good while during the week, which is I know why. So I just didn't do it right that week. So it's not something that I can't overcome. I'm not worried about it. But yeah, it's you think you could tell yourself all you like, don't worry about it, don't overthink it, just let it go. But when you're actually doing it, I was tentative, very tentative.
Is it the fear of missing? I mean, can you verbalise that? Is it that simple, or is there more to it?
Not of missing. It's a fear of messing up,
right.
of the next, of the consequences. You overthink the consequences, and you add in control. I can give you the solution if you want. So if anybody's out there and they're struggling with putting or chipping, what actually happens is, in their preparation, they have a lot going on in their head. So when they get over the ball, they also have a lot going on. And if you ever want to read a great book on this, The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters. So essentially, your brain is just racing from one to other to all different points, scrambling to try and get something to focus on, and it's got too much going on, and that's what causes the anxiousness.
Right.
So if you just pick one thing and stick to it over and over and over and over and over on every time you approach it, once you get comfortable with one thing, your mind settles down and you don't have that anxiousness. And what happened to me last week, as I said, I have been putting well, is I kept going to the putting green and trying to improve my putting. And of course, every time you try and improve it, you add something in.
Yeah.
And then when golf course, I had a couple of thoughts in my head and just, was racing. You just got to simplify it and have one thought that consumes you. And that then, as if you want to read that book, The Chimp Paradox, the chimp just settles down and does and leaves everything to run on automatic.
Yeah, but you're not exactly the same as Phil, though. I mean, that scenario that you just described on the Phil's attitude to the 13th hole, which, I mean, he hit it in the water again on the 13th the next day with his second shot, but that doesn't sound like you, in my experience. I mean, where would you have been different standing on that tee compared with Phil?
There's an awful lot of that in me. When I'm under pressure, I'm stubborn. I'm very similar to Phil. I refuse to follow the crowd. I don't want to do what anybody else would do. I want to stubbornly. I want to do it my own way and a different way to everybody else. So if everybody was doing it right, I'd still try and find a different way to do it.
well, that does sound like you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I would. I know this sounds strange, but like if I was coming down the last hole, and it's easier under pressure, I've got to say, but if I was coming down the last hole and it was a hole like 13 with water on the right and sort of temptation to go left, even though it's not good to be left, it would kill me to choke and hit it left. I lost the tournament. I lost the European Open at the K Club to Michael Campbell. I'm hitting a 6-iron into the last of par 5, and I hit it in the water with the whole golf course on the right.
Yeah.
My only thought was not to bail out right with my second shot. That was a stupid thought. I should have been trying to hit a great shot, but it just, sometimes, I'd say I'm very like Phil, that I get these mad ideas that, I don't want to chicken out. I don't want to be a choker. I don't want to bail out. And then actually end up hitting the worst shot. Whereas, in the right frame of mind, you wouldn't be trying to do either.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of bailing out. I think that's weak. So I wouldn't be. Here's another one that I think you're a complete choker if you hit your putt too hard on the last green through the break.
Right.
So
okay.
this is I watch all the commentators. The guy would be standing over a putter girl for 15 footer to get in the playoff, and he hits it 3 feet by, and the conversation, well, he gave it a run.
Yeah.
But that's a complete choke. You have to be very brave to trust the pace and line that you choose to hit it on, and you may leave a putt short. So a good putter may leave it short, but a bad putt, the amount of people who choke on the 18th green by hitting their putts too hard and completely, but it doesn't look bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They walk away and say, "Oh, I gave it a good run." No, you didn't. You hit it 3 feet too hard. You had no chance at that pace. You hit it on the wrong line. You've got to be so that would be those would be my mindsets. And I know Phil is very similar to me. You have to be so brave if you've got a putt to win in the last that you're not thinking of the worst thought you can have is to be up to the hole.
Yeah.
The only thought is hold it, whatever that means.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
It would be a terrible thought also to think I don't want to hit it by the hole. I'm saying have no thought as regards hitting it too hard or hitting it too easy. Just have a thought to hold it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like saying, that missing it long is better than missing it short, but what you should really be focusing on is actually making the putt, So.
Exactly. That is exactly the point. If your last thought is be up, you're likely to miss the putt. Whereas your last thought is just hold it, you've got the best chance you have. Yeah. But you may leave it short, and everybody, all those people who don't understand will criticize you for leaving it short. But they're just really not there. They are the chokers. They're the ones who are useless.
Yeah, it sounds like you're never going to make a television commentator, because that's what they say all the time when somebody does that.
I just love it because they're buying into that, perpetuating the myth. And I know the amount of people I've seen do that in playoffs and things like that, and I just go, wow, that they just got caught up in not wanting to be embarrassed by leaving a putt short. That's important. But if you're a good putter, you will leave the odd putt short, because that's the nature of being a good putter. You're not, bad. Yeah.
Anyway, the Phil's victory, remarkable as it was, is just the kind of latest episode in what I'm starting to call the year of the geezer. I mean, we've had Westwood and Stuart Sink and Richard Bland and yourself doing well last week. I mean, there's a whole pile of people in their mid to late 40s suddenly doing well. Is there something going on, or is this just a coincidence?
I would think there's a coincidence in it that you have more players doing well at that age. I think clearly as we get older, players are fitter and stronger. In the instance of Stuart Sink is a very long hitter. Always has been, and found it very easy to be a long hitter. So he doesn't give up anything. Phil has made the effort to be a long hitter. Yeah. Lee West is a great ball striker and has maintained he's maintained his distance, but he's probably lost out to the field in distance. But he's still such a good driver of the ball. So if you want to be competitive older nowadays, you can't give up much. You can't sort of, it's not a question you can go out there and play against these young guys if you're giving up 25 yards off the tee and a couple of clubs in irons. It's just too much to do. But the guys you're picking there have all sustained themselves quite well. And Lee would be the one that hasn't gained distance, but he's such a good driver of the ball that, relatively he can gain off the tee in strokes gained. So it's not something that hurts him, let's say. But the Stuart Sink one is, people were talking about that, and I'm laughing at that because he's always been exceptionally long without having to hit the golf ball very hard. So it's been easy for him in that sense to stay competitive.
Yeah. What do you think of the theory that, I mean, I hate to pick on one tournament, but talking about last week, I mean, Phil winning and you doing well, and even Shane Lowry, who's I class as a kind of more an artist than a scientist in this modern world. I mean, there's a theory knocking about that you take the younger lads out of their sort of PGA Tour bubble, if you like, where you can certainly argue that the challenge every week is very difficult, but it's kind of the same every week. And you take them outside that narrow form of golf, and they struggle a little bit because I think I saw a stat that none of the top 15 on the FedEx Cup points finished in the top 15 last week. Is that just a coincidence, or is there more to that than you think?
Well, that stat is a coincidence. The top 15 players on the PGA Tour can play golf. And they play on different styles of golf course. I would agree with you that as the standard of play improves and it gets deeper, it's very hard. If you're competing against one guy who hits it a long way straight and has to have a good week to be any good, well, you kind of discount that. But if there's 30 or 40 guys in the field that they're not great artists, let's say, but they can hit the golf ball well. Well, I guarantee you, one of those 30 or 40 guys is not going to come up against odd situations or get a few bad lies or get, one of them's going to play well and it's going to be hard to beat. So I think it is much harder to win a regular PGA Tour event than it is to win a major. Like it is just such a, like trying to win a regular PGA Tour event is like running 100 meters. It is a sprint from the word go. If you're not 5 under after 9, you're starting to panic because the depth. There's so many guys willing to play. Whereas you go to a major, and especially a major like Kiawah Island, where there is wind and there's a lot of variety in what you have to do. It feels very much like a marathon. You can take your time. Don't worry about things. Be careful. Don't make bogeys. Be patient. Whereas, at a regular event, you've got to get going quick.
Yeah.
It is very tough to beat 30 players. And let's. I go to Bryson DeChambeau. Bryson DeChambeau is a world-class player who's made himself a long hitter. So he would have won tournaments and won majors. So look, let's face it, he's not a perfect example of this. But if you get one guy like Bryson DeChambeau who's hit the golf ball at 200 mile an hour, and we already had several of them in terms of Brandon Hagee, Cameron Champ, all were up at those speeds. Okay, but nobody worried about one guy. Nobody worries about one guy. But if you got 30 guys like Bryson DeChambeau all hitting at 200 mile an hour, or 40 of them, well, the field couldn't compete with that because the winner would come from those 40.
Yeah,
because one of them would hit it straight that week. One of them would have a good week at the greens. And if somebody's hitting 40 yards past you, it's not a big deal if it's only one guy. But if he's having a good day, it is a big deal. And if there's 40 of them, one of them will have a good day.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this a couple of years ago when Koepka was winning, it seemed like every major or just about every second major. I mean, I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a terrific player, obviously. But my concern was that his way of playing was going to become the only way to play at that level. And you seem to be subscribing to that theory by what you're saying. Is that fair? Or is that the road we're headed down? I don't know.
I would put Koepka as a player. I think he knows how to play golf. I don't put him as a guy who just and I see this. There's plenty of guys out there who just stick them in the trees, and the only thing they would do is chip out. They don't know what to do. They put them in an awkward lie, and they don't know what to do. Koepka's not that player. Koepka is a player who can manage all conditions, and he's a strong player, hits the ball well, but he's moderate length now for what we would see out on tour. He's there's nothing. He's in the pack. He's not one of these guys way up there. So I would put him as actually a guy from his European play and from his challenger, and I've got to say, his chip, and he's improved his chip in no end with Pete Down. I would go and say this Koepka is not that guy. He's a player who can manage all golf courses, all conditions. But there's a bunch of lads out there who, for sure, give them a bad lie on the fairway. They'd be the sort of guys that want every fairway to be perfectly manicured, every lie to be flat, never to have a bad lie, and the perfect guy wins every week. There's a bunch of those who are hard to beat. But not Koepka. He can get down and when it's tough and with variety and whatever's going on, he's tough. He will play.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because as I say, I worry about the direction of the elite golf in terms of certainly the distance and just the style of play. I mean, the days of Luke Donald being number one, for example, are basically gone, are they not?
Yeah. Well, what I see going ahead is we're going to come to there's going to be a lot more long hitters. So when I came out on tour, 170 ball speed, if you had that, you were amply long. There was never going to build a golf course that you had a problem with. Now it's 180 ball speed. You want to have 180 ball speed, or else you're giving up to the field in certain situations. It will become 190 ball speed, but it's not going to go 190 to 200, it's not going to go ridiculously past that. We're sort of getting to baseball numbers that you're really at the end of the physicality, but it will go those speeds. What will happen is eventually somebody with 200 mile an hour ball speed within themselves, so there'd be, I know DeChambeau's got there, but he's obviously making a big effort. You're going to get a guy who's comfortably able to do that.
Yeah.
And he's a real player. So you will find some of these guys will know, like a Tiger Woods, will know how to play from all sorts of lies and all sorts of shots, and the right shot at the right time. That will come. So the artistry will come back in. But in the changeover at the moment, yes, there is a big advantage to just being able to hit the one shot over and over with a bit of power.
Yeah.
So I hope it's a transition, or else we'll just have to go back we'll have to dial something back. That would make it a lot. If we dial it back, it would make it a lot easier, a lot simpler.
Well, I do worry that, what you just described, where are these guys going to play 10 years from now?
Well, I will say we played the Ocean course last week, 7,800 yards, the longest course we have encountered in a major. And all I was concerned about, I'm 49 years of age, all I was concerned about was runouts. I found the course did not play long.
That's frightening.
No issue whatsoever with length the whole week. Like, we're talking, most of the time we were looking at, bit of a run out here. There, it was tough to hit some of those fairways with the dog legs with run out. So it was a perfect setup.
Mm-hmm.
And they did move a few tees forward. So they were very sensible with the way they set the golf course up. But I can tell you, and I've always said this: you turn up on the Monday of a major and you go, "How am I going to get around this brute?" And by the time you play the golf course in the tournament, assuming decent weather, the fairways firm up, all of a sudden it just doesn't play. You that par 4 that you thought was a brute, you end up hitting 9-iron into. And you can you get pumped up in majors. I think the biggest problem you have in golf is what you see on the TV does not reflect what amateur golfers are playing.
Oh, no.
Like, we're playing 7,800 yards. Phil Mickelson hit a drive on that 366-yard drive on the 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was 177 mile an hour ball speed, it's great for Phil Mickelson, but it's far from spectacular in terms of a powerful drive. But with the conditions and all that, the ball goes a long way. He make the same swing at home in Ireland during the winter. That's going 260.
Right.
Okay. Not 360. So, I think people at home are they're sucked into this idea. Like, I regularly hit my 7-iron on tour, 190. That would be, on a nice warm day. Yeah, I'll go 190, certainly 185. I can go to 195.
Yeah.
Again, at home, I'm not talking wind at home, I'm talking temperature at home. That's 160, 165.
Yeah.
So there is, they never, if we played golf in the winter not even the winter, in the spring and autumn, say in Great Britain and Ireland, we would never ever need to roll back any piece of equipment.
No, that's true.
We need to warm it up. But yes, if you play golf in these, like, the golf balls perform unbelievable in 90 degrees of heat. Unbelievable when it gets warm. So I will go and say, yeah, professional golf is just not a great representation of golf.
No,
and remember,
certainly the gap between the game that you play and the game I play has never been bigger than it is now, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah. But professional golf is what, like, it wouldn't be a tenth of a percent
it's irrelevant statistically. You're right. Yeah.
Yes, and I will say we have way too much sway over the game of golf. The RNA and the USGA represent so many more golfers, and they really should be the ones to take a stand and they're running the game for the good of the game, whereas professional golf is running an entertainment business for, and it's a different model, and neither of them are wrong. But you can't let professionals have that much of a say over what is the good of the game, because the good of the game is all about the amateurs and the ones who are going to play and enjoy the game and drive the game along for years. But I don't know the full solutions. Is it separate rules, or it's hard to know. It really is hard.
Well, I've been in favour of what they call bifurcation for a while now, because I think that we already have it. I've argued this with Martin Slumbers and Peter Dawson, his predecessor, saying, well, you've created bifurcation now by not really doing, controlling the distance that the players, the pros hit it.
I'll ask you this question. So do you want to draw back the amateurs, or do you want to draw back the...
No, not at all. No. I mean, give the amateurs just about every break they can get to make it, whatever makes it more fun for those guys. Yes. I'm all for it. But for you guys, as I said, my worry is it's not the scores that offend me. It's the way that the golf courses get played. I mean, last week was a refreshing exception, and I was, on a positive note, I was heartened to see how well. I wasn't really surprised to see how well Shane Lowry played, because that's right up his street. I mean, you know him better than anybody probably, and I mean, he's so creative, and you see all these different shots, and that's the kind of golf I want to watch. I'm a bit of a romantic in that respect. Yes. I plead guilty to that, but I do worry that as I say, the gap is bigger, and we should just acknowledge that.
Yeah, but it is interesting. Once we acknowledge that there is a difference, do we turn around to amateurs and say, as I said, okay, you see the guy on TV. I saw Brooks hit 9-iron into 11 from, I think it was 200 yards. Mm. And everybody go, oh my God, that's unbelievable. Well, I can Brooks's 9-iron ball speed is going to be pretty much like maybe a couple of miles an hour quicker than the next pro. Mm. It's not. He hasn't turned into a Kyle Berkshire overnight or something like that. That's very circumstantial to the conditions and the weather and being up. Again, if he was at home playing into a cold wind, it's going 130 yards. If he was back in Ireland,
yes.
So it's just, they're two different products, really. Yeah. At the end of the day, professional golf and amateur golf, two different. And like for me, I would say the rollback for amateurs. The issue I have is, obviously, golf courses are too expensive to build. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't change old golf courses if they're landlocked. I find that maintenance of golf courses, if you build them, are too expensive. Walking around a big golf course takes forever, and that's probably my biggest. Like if you go play St Andrews now, and you have to walk back 60 yards, 70 yards to tee boxes. That's a lot.
I did that. I don't know, maybe 18 months ago, I went out and on a Sunday and just walked round, and I added 2,000. It was 2,000 yards I walked between the previous green and the next championship tee and back again. It added 2,000 yards to the walk.
Up and back was 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Look, it's a lot of time. Every time you build a new tee, 20, 30 yards further back, that's adding maybe, at least a minute, if not maybe 2 minutes pace of play, which is crucial in the game. Look, every golf course owner I've ever talked to, and I'm going to tell you, it's a free piece of advice to all the people out of a golf course. Build a quick set of tee boxes, which basically is a tee boxes close to the back of the green going in the direction of the next hole.
Yeah.
That's how they used to build a golf course. Now, I know you can't use that when the course is busy, but when two people are out there having a quick, carrying their bag, want a quick game of golf, just tee off on the back of the hole of the green and off you go. Yes, some holes would be shorter and some holes would be longer, but this walking backwards 60, 70 yards, and there is an awful lot of pressure in golf to speed up. The biggest problem in golf, look, golf always has this reputation as a rich man's sport, but the reality is you do have to be rich. You have to be rich in time, It's the biggest thing to constrain people playing the game, staying in the game, and loving the game is they don't have time.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about, again, last week, John Catlin, the American lad who plays on the European Tour, was done a stroke for slow play, took too long. Now, I was watching, I don't hate to pick out Phil, but I'm going to pick out Phil because there is no way that he didn't break the rules multiple times. Where's the consistency in that?
I have a bee in my bonnet with you over this. There is no rule of golf that says you have to play within 40 seconds. There is a rule of golf in professional golf now that you have to play within 2 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that last week, the rule that Catlin broke, Phil broke multiple times.
He didn't. He did not.
He did. He did.
Wait, I'm not saying he didn't take more than 40 seconds.
Yeah.
There's no rule in golf you've got to play within 40 seconds. There's no rule on the tour you've got to play within 40 seconds.
Well, why was Catlin penalised then?
Because he was told he was on the clock. Once you're on the clock, you have to play within 50 seconds if you're first to play, 40 seconds if you're second to play, and that 40 seconds has a small. Now they have tightened it up.
Well, the obvious question, Padraig, is why was Phil not on the clock?
Because he was on the clock on day 2.
Well, he wasn't on the last round. I mean, he was way over on the last day multiple times.
But was he not within he wasn't on the clock because his group was within time.
Well,
so 40 seconds is not a rule of golf. No. You can take more than 40. No, I'm not saying you should take more than. Usually, it takes about 20 seconds to hit a golf shot when you're in position. Okay, as in. It takes a little long. The 40 seconds only ever becomes an issue when, if you were off the green and you wanted to walk up and you're 60, 70 feet or something like that, that takes a bit of time.
Yeah. So,
you have to be aware, but it's very simple. The group must keep up. Okay. If your group doesn't keep up, the referee comes along and they give you a warning, say, keep up. If you don't make that catch up, then you're going to be putting the clock.
Yeah.
When you're putting the clock, you have to be I'm going to explain how this works. And this is why John Catlin got penalised. John Catlin, I've played with John Catlin. John Catlin needs to be more aware of this.
He is slow. I mean, I wasn't complaining about him getting penalised by any means.
But this is my point. He needs to be more aware too.
Yeah.
So the better, this is going to be, you're not going to like this, John.
No, I've heard this before, but I know what you're going to say. So.
Are aware. So they know, okay, they're doing their job, they're paying attention, and but if they're putting the clock, they're extra aware. Now, what I mean by that is they know if they hit it on the fairway, hit it on the green, that 40 seconds is plenty of time to do whatever they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're aware that if they're out of position, hang on a second, we've got to be, on top of this, and you'll see because I was in that group that was timed with Phil on Friday. You will see we will. So the difference being is if I walk down the fairway with my caddy, if I'm not on the clock. If I'm on the clock, my caddy is going to run down that fairway, be 50 yards ahead of me, have all the yardage done. I'll have my yardage book out 50 yards short of my ball, and I'll have everything done, yardage, everything in place before I get to my ball, so that I don't have. I'm speeding up because I'm on the clock, but I'm making sure that those full. As I said, it takes 20 seconds, so I know that if I have everything under control when I get to the golf ball, it's not 20 seconds. I can relax. I don't have to panic. Now you will panic about it because you never ever stop thinking. If you're on the clock, you're always aware of it. Yeah. Phil even said it. Phil said it on and we weren't on the clock on our second last hole. He missed the green, and he said he wanted to step off it, but he was afraid that he was going to get a bad time. Myself and Jason Day, who probably a bit more aware than Phil, both was turned around and said, "No, the referee has left us on the last hole. We're not on the clock anymore."
Right. I'm interested in your thoughts on all this because, I mean, back in the day, you were the kind of poster boy for slow play for a bit. I mean, what did you do to address that?
Very harsh. Yes,
well, you were. Come on.
I would say pace of play has cost me so many shots in my career. It's untrue.
Right.
I look back, if I was teaching anybody, you never ever want to be concerned about your pace of play, and I've always been concerned about my pace of play. Yeah. I wish I was. They time everybody in the States now all the time, so I'm absolutely average now.
Yeah,
right in the.
You clearly did something about it, though. I mean, I'm just interested in what you did, because.
Well, I'd be aware.
Yeah,
it's very annoying when you're in a group that somebody isn't aware. I have no problem with playing with a player who is. Sorry, I do have a problem playing with a player who's stupidly slow.
Right.
I have no problem playing with. I had no problem playing with Phil Mickelson last week. If you're saying he's, I had no problem, because I didn't see any situation that he wasn't ready to play. Mm-hmm. He was doing it. And that's all you can ask your playing partners, that they're somewhat aware that it's their turn to play, and that they're not. There's nothing worse than playing with a guy who's maybe first to hit, and you're finished, ready. You're ready to go, and he still has got his glove out or something like that.
Yeah, you see that a lot. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of head shaking goes on when you see that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's unfair to your playing partners, but it's not unfair to, like, there's players who are information gatherers who need information, and they have to figure a way to get that information within a reasonable time, but they're never going to be quick. So, like, somebody like me, I want to know that the pin is 6 from the back and 4 from the left, and 8 over the bunker and 14 from the front. Whereas Angel Cabrera, I remember, he just wanted to know 1 yardage. What's it to the pin? 192, good. Yeah. Off I go. So, there are people who are instinctive and go, and you can't expect somebody to play somebody else's way. And I always find that fascinating, that every quick player who's ever been in the game always thinks that everybody should play at their pace, and you're going,
that's true. Yeah. So.
That's just so ignorant to think that everybody should play at the same pace. We all should play within the rules and within reason. And definitely, if you're a slow player, you lose your rights to a lot of things if you're a slow player.
Yeah. Anyway,
and that may be what you're getting at, John.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to move.
You have to do a lot.
I'm going to move you on, because I promise I'll never describe you as the poster boy for slow play again. I clearly struck a nerve there. So.
As I said, it's cost me a lot of shots over the years because I'm looking like I'm slow. I've penalised myself far more times in my own head and drop shots based on it than I would have ever have if I could get away from being the person who wants to know all the information.
Yeah. Anyway, let me go back to the question that I normally open these podcasts with. What was back in the day the thing about golf for you? I mean, what got you into it? I mean, what was the attraction?
I got into it because my dad built a golf course for the police in Ireland. He built a course for about 15 minutes from my home, and it became my playground. And eventually, I hung out there a lot. And while I played all other sports and would have assumed I was going to be a Gaelic footballer as my sport, I had success in golf, and letting in a couple of goals playing soccer on the weekend or winning a competition on the weekend made it very easy to go, golf is the one for me. So it's the competitive side of it, the I suppose early success, and just love being around it because of it.
Yeah, you mentioned the goal. I mean, I've seen your hands. Are your hands permanently, misshapen, if I can put it that way? Are they still that way, or is that something you're?
Yeah, every goalkeeper you'll ever come across, fingers are all over the place. They stick. It's bizarre when you like. I love the idea of youth development when it comes to sport, but when it comes to soccer, as I'm going to call it soccer at the moment, I know that will insult a lot of people. I take Gaelic football.
Yeah.
So great. And of course, when Gaelic football guys go to play soccer, they go, "Oh, you can catch the ball, you go and goal." So I end up in goals in soccer, and that's how my goalkeeping career started up. Right. But they put you in goals at 12 years of age, and you can't even come close to the crossbar. Like, it's bizarre that they don't have a smaller pitch. And then you're like, the one thing I could always do when I played football, I learned to do, was I could kick the ball. because at 12 years of age, you're trying to clear your lines on a cold winter's morning, and you can hardly get it outside the 18-yard box, and it's coming back in twice as fast and always above your head. The amount of goals that the ball would come in flying over your head into the net, and of course I'd be trying to catch those, save them, and I'd sprain my fingers. And every week, I'd say I spent the whole season every year with sprained fingers, strapping them up, trying to keep them.
So, how would you describe them now, and how much of an effect has that had on your golf grip? I mean,
I wouldn't think it had any effect. If I have arthritis in my left hand and one of the fingers, and I will feel it on a cold, wet day.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, they're just I won't make it as a hand model. If I had one grievance, I prefer it. Clearly, as a golfer, I prefer to have bigger hands and bigger feet.
Right.
Everything else doesn't bother me. Those two would be quite good for golf. It is the old analogy that I think it was Jack who said, "Give me a man with big hands and big feet who can dance, and we'll make a golfer."
Yeah. Well, I remember back in the day when I was just a kid, a member at the golf club who was a good player said to me, "You need 3 things, son, to be a good golfer. You need a big hands, a big feet, and a big head."
Well, you got one of the 3.
Very good, yes. I do have a very large cranium, but that's another subject, yes.
I will say, I remember playing a match as a kid, and I played a shot out of the trees, and somebody said, "Oh, God, he's got great hands." And I took that as a big insult, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. Great hands is what you need for golf. But at the time, it was all about, I suppose it was more Faldo teaching of, really it's all about the body and take the hands out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we're talking about your amateur life now, when did it become clear that you were a bit of a stud? I'm assuming you progressed all the way through the boys' youths, full international, you ticked those boxes on the way up to Walker Cup, etc. I mean, but how soon did it become clear that there was some talent there?
Talent-wise, I don't know. I made it to the Irish boys when I was 15, the under-18 team.
Mm.
But I don't think, and maybe this is why I ended up good, I don't think I ever was considered to be the star, even though I was the best at every level I played at.
Mm-hmm.
But I never played a pro event until I was 24 years of age. So I wasn't even though I could beat all the other 13-year-olds, 50, as I was 13, 15, 18, whatever age, I dominated at my level. I never lost I never lost a home international singles match.
Yeah, you've told me that before. I'm
so proud of it. I never lost Europeans. So these are the things I could beat people.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, when I turned pro, and I played 3 Walker Cups at that stage, nobody would have been looking and going, "This is the guy that's definitely going to make it." This guy, even though if you didn't see me play, because I didn't have a great golf swing, I didn't have a pretty golf swing. If you only saw my results, I think you would have said I was going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, the people I've talked to about you back in the day, they said you had the perfect game for match play.
Yeah, was I good at match play?
Yeah.
I half a dozen shots better than I am as a golfer now in match play back then.
Yeah.
In terrible conditions. I don't even I wish I had that ability to be so much in the moment, one shot at a time. And I was scared of my life. That's why I was good. I used to think I was going to get beaten. I got so hyped up that I was going to get beaten or the conditions would beat me that I would just play phenomenal and on the toughest of golf courses, in tough, crazy stuff I couldn't do now. But again, I never played in the Eisenhower, which is the 4-man Great Britain and Ireland team. So, I remember I didn't get picked in the Eisenhower again. I would have told you this.
You're still bitter about this, I can tell.
Oh, I'm very much. I hadn't been beaten in Ireland in stroke play for 18 months, and I didn't make a stroke play team.
Yeah.
So, I don't like committees either, but you can see how I can assume, if you're not, we get lost in golf. If a guy is like 6'2", blonde, big shoulders. Everybody assumes that he's a great golfer because he's got a great golf swing. But just because you look like it doesn't mean you are it.
Yeah.
You know, in the end of the day, we get very much caught up in life with making our judgments and assumptions based on what we see. But in golf in particular, most of the time, it's the hidden value that you can't see determines how good a golfer you are. You know, it's the X factor.
Yeah. What were the highlights and lowlights of your amateur life?
The highlights, I played 3 Walker Cups. You know, I won the Irish Close. I won the Irish thing. I lost an Irish Close, I remember, with 2 up with 3 to play. That was pretty tough. I lost an Irish Youth 2 ahead with 3 that cried after losing that one. Lowlights.
I'm suspecting or expecting you to mention Carnoustie.
Oh yeah. Well, I never really got a great run at the British Amateur because it was always I was studying accountancy and the exams were always on, so I used to miss it. And when I did get to play, Carnoustie was the one. I had a great opportunity. I was playing great, and Stephen Dundas, who went on to win it, beat me in the last 16, I think. So it wasn't like it was the semi-final or final, but yeah, I finished. I think I finished 6th. In order for Stephen to beat me, I hit it out of bounds on the 18th hole. How at this stage, if I didn't win the playoff in 2007, after messing up the 72nd hole, I think I would secretly be going back to dig up the 18th hole.
Well, I was just going to ask you. I mean, how much was that going through your mind? The amateur, maybe not that much, but. Maybe afterwards it certainly would have by the sound of it. But I mean, that hole is incredibly difficult at the best of times. But was that? Did it occur to you? Oh my God, I've done this again, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And worse the second time round, because not alone did I have my own scar tissue from the amateur hitting it out of bounds with a 6-iron from the fairway. I had Van de Velde's scar tissue as well. You didn't and that. Like I made 6 from chipping and putting from 48 yards, so I was very close to Van de Velde 7, and we know how many shots he hit at the hole. So look, the 18th at Carnoustie's got to be the toughest finishing hole in competitive golf. There's drama every single. There's nowhere it's just nothing you can do to avoid it. You're going to have to take some of the trouble on and some of the shots. At some stage, it's probably the way a golf course should finish.
Yeah, but I'm interested in is there still a cold sweat aspect to this? And do you wake up in the middle of the night thinking, there but for the grace of God, that you got up and down for the 6 and didn't take the 7, and I
absolutely, and in 2 senses as well. Only that I won at Birkdale the following year, and obviously I went on to win 2 more majors. I think even winning at Carnoustie, it's as exciting as it was to win your first major. Messing up the 72nd hole would have left questions, and I would have definitely had, if that was my only major. I as much as it's great to win a major, it would have been a burden rather than anything else. Most one-time major winners, it does become a burden, but certainly winning the way messing up the 72nd hole, you never want to be known as somebody who cracked under pressure. Now, great to come back in the playoff, but winning in 2008 certainly gave me that, was a much more satisfying feeling the way I won in Birkdale, which made Carnoustie more palatable. That wasn't the dream way of winning.
Yeah, I mean, it's hypothetical, but had you not won at Carnoustie, would you have won the other 2, do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
If I had won at Carnoustie, I think I think it would have broken me. For sure. I know I come back from making mistakes in the past. My whole career has been a learning curve like that. As I said, I named plenty of amateur tournaments where I've lost them, and I lost plenty of pro tournaments. And you're always learning. But when you lose at the very pinnacle, that's the one you're trying to win. All those other losses were to get me to Carnoustie, and if I had lost on that seven, and it's the only time on the golf course when I hit my third shot in the water in Carnoustie on the 18th. It's the only time in my whole golfing career that I was embarrassed. The only time I felt like I was choking. The only time I wanted to give up. And thankfully, my caddy, Ronan, who we'd worked with Bob Rotella, he started into a complete, I don't know if you call it a rant, but a spiel of cliches. All the cliches. It's not over. Come on, one shot at a time. Let's play it out. Let's see what's happening. And I think he took the 4-iron off me because I would have hit him with it. I've never been, I am the most optimistic person, fight hard guy. That was the one time that was soul destroying to mess up that under pressure when it really counted. This was and on the 72nd hole I was one shot ahead, so it was my tournament to win, and I did up. This other major championships I've had a chance of winning, I haven't had the lead where it's mine. I've had the position where if I do things right, I could win it. But this is the one, it was mine at that stage. And my caddy talked me around. I'd say for 50 yards, I wanted to kill him. For 50 yards, I was listening to him. And for the last 50 yards, and it wasn't much more than 150 yards, I believed him.
Yeah, you were on board. Back. Yeah.
Yeah, cliches. I tell the story afterwards. I remember telling it, that I believed what he said, and I was so proud that he hadn't given up. I'd given up, and he told me after about a month after me telling the stories to many people, he says, it wasn't that I believed. I thought you lost the effing Open too. I just doing my job.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like to me anyway. I haven't really asked you this question before, but it sounds like Birkdale gave you the most pleasure of the three. Is that fair?
First one was very exciting. Your first is always exceptionally exciting. My second in Birkdale Major was the most satisfying. Just the way it went about. I couldn't have written the script I could have written the script when I was 15 for Birkdale. Exactly how you right. Yeah. Everything was perfect about it. The drama, the excitement, the way I played, the shot I hit in the 71st hole to have the big lead and wave at the crowds in 18. Everything about it was like what a kid would imagine. That's not real life. And winning in Oakland Hills, I stole it. Nothing better than stealing one. So I just stood in at the right time and grabbed it. One more hole, one less hole. It wasn't my championship at Oakland Hills. I just took the right moment and grabbed it and stole it. And very, very, that's very sweet, I can tell you.
Yeah, so there's three very different ways to win, really.
Yeah, but this is the thing, isn't it? Kids out there, everybody, commentators, whatever, like to tell you that there's only one set way, that everybody who wins is the best player, best swinger, best, everything went right. But when you look back at the wins, and I, as I said, all my wins, and I look at other people's, it's amazing the amount of coincidental things that happen the week you win. Loads of little things happen. And it could be as simple as you're not getting a bad break that you don't even know about. But it's not totally, all that's in your control is putting you in a position that when you get a good break or when you don't get a bad break, that you get the win out of it. The things that happen on the golf course, because it's outdoors, there's so much more going on that, and I think this is the problem I mentioned earlier about a lot of one-time major winners. You're always trying to live up to the expectations of how you thought you played. But, the week you won the tournament, I guarantee you played okay and you've got lots of good breaks and lots of things that just made you, as I said, you hold a 6-footer for par on a par 4. You'll walk to the next tee thinking you hit a good drive and a good approach shot. You miss that 6-footer and you're walking the next tee thinking you're swinging the club badly. Nothing to do with how you're swinging the 6-footer, but hey, it changes your mindset. And we're, unfortunately in golf, we can't get away from it. We're quite fickle like that. and it's easier for me to tell you. It's easier for me to tell the next person how they should think, but it's do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. Do you subscribe to the theory that not every player who's won a major is a great player, but that every great player has won a major?
No, there's certainly some great players who haven't won majors.
Yeah.
I clearly it leaves something wanting. And the truth of it is, yes, I will have to say there are people who have won majors that are not great players. But it still doesn't take away from the great achievement. And the fact of the matter is, in golf, the only way you're going to be immortalized is by your major wins.
Yeah.
When we look back at somebody from 60, 70 years ago, I'm not talking people that we might have seen play, we can only tell their performance by how many majors they've won. So yeah, it is a tough one. You've got to go and win those majors.
It's cruel, isn't it? Really,
it is very cruel. There's no doubt about it. But again, the only way we have of judging the next people coming up and comparisons is majors.
Yeah.
How do you do in the majors?
I know, but it does get a bit ridiculous. I mean, I always use. I mean, Monty's the classic example. I mean, I remember when he lost the playoff in the PGA to Elkington at Riviera back in 1995. He lost at the first extra hole. Monty hit the better drive of the two. He hit the better second shot, and then watched Elkington hole this long putt for a birdie, and then he missed. And he walks in, and somebody says to him, "What went wrong?" I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's very harsh.
It is very hard. The only thing that saves you is that there's more than there's 4 majors a year and you have more years. So you're hoping that if it was to be obviously the game makes fools of us most of the time, and if we were to rely on the worst thing that can happen to us, or worst performance, it would be we live for that one moment that it does go right and things are. But you're 100% right. There's no doubt there's circumstantial stuff to it. I had no control over Sergio Garcia's putt on the 72nd hole at Carnoustie.
Yeah.
If it goes in, all we'd be talking about, it'd be me and John Van de Velde we'd be talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to an extent.
His putt, I had no control over that putt. But what I did have control over was my attitude when he missed the putt. So when he's going to hold that putt, I know I need him to miss for me to get in the playoff, but I'm actually just focusing on the playoff. So I didn't get a big rush of adrenaline when he missed, high or low. And I went out to play that playoff. I wasn't happy to be in the playoff. I was in the playoff. There was nothing about me, oh, this is great, I'm getting a second chance. Look at me. The amount of guys who turn up in playoffs, I just laugh and they're happy to be there. What is that all about? You're there to win the playoff, win the whole, be in the moment, whatever cliche you want. But I'm happy to be there. Is not one of them. I'm here to win. So that's what I did right about Sergio's putt. But I had no control over the actual putt.
It sounds like it's similar. Back certainly in my experience of amateur golf, there was a lot of guys. Their sole aim was to make a team.
Yes.
And then, but once they got there, they weren't really concerned about winning or losing. It was an odd thing, but making the team was the big deal. It's odd.
The one for me was because we obviously had essentially like 5 months of no competition during the winter here, before you get to a championship, at least 5 months, maybe 6 months between championships.
Yeah.
And you'd have somebody who would practice hard, work really hard during that 6 months to get ready for the new season. And then they come out to the first championship, which was the West of Ireland in Ireland up at the Easter weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they get there, they'd start going out drinking and partying. Because they wanted the excuse. If they failed, they wanted to be able to say, oh, well, I wasn't trying. They spent 6 months trying, but when the pressure came on, they needed that outlet if they lost after 6 months of practice, they considered they failed. But if they had the excuse to say, Yeah, but I had too many pints last night. We had a great time. That's why I lost. They just looked for an excuse. I could never, why didn't they drink for 6 months and then come and play serious?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know guys like that as well. It's a funny world, that. It really is. Anyway, Padraig, I want to talk to you about Bob Torrance. I can't go past without bringing up Bob. I've said this to you before, I think, but when people ask me about you, I always say that you were the perfect pupil for Bob, because you had everything that a great player needs to win at the very highest level when you turn pro, except the ability to hit the shots that you can now hit. And Bob gave you that. I mean, Bob made you hit the ball better. Is that a fair assessment, that he added the one ingredient that you needed?
Yeah, 100%. So in 1998, I played the US Open at the Olympic Club, and I got everything I could possibly get out of my golf that week and finished 27th. Everything. There was not a shot I left on the golf course. And I just realized at that stage, I says, hang on, this is as good as I can do. There's nothing more in my game than this. I need something else. What do I need? And I knew it wasn't my short game. I knew it wasn't my attitude. Mm-hmm. So Bob Torrance, every player he worked with was a ball striker. So I said, this is the man. Everybody he has becomes a ball striker or is a ball striker. So I went to him, and Bob, it was a match made in heaven. And I don't just mean, yes, golfing wise, but Bob was like a father figure. Bob was the man you wanted to be when you, he was an older man, so he must have, I suppose he was in his 60s when I started, 70s, mm-hmm. He's the guy you wanted to be at that age. And just everything about it, I was perfect for him because I had the short game.
Yeah.
So Bob would focus. Bob only wanted you to chip when you were chipping back to par fours. That was his own. So that, and we focused. He loved the fact that he would stand in the range, and he still did that right up on way up. I remember, he'd be there all day, but I'd stand there with him. So the two of us, I was the perfect pupil. I would practice all day. Yeah. He would coach all day.
This is at the Inverclyde Sports Centre in Largs you're talking about.
That was actually called the Salt Mines.
Right, yeah, that's what I remember them calling it. Yeah.
But, it's funny he called it the Salt Mines, and yet never were the two of us happier than when we were up there.
Yeah. But did he make you pick up the balls?
Oh, yes, we both picked them.
All right, okay.
But that's something that's missing in golf now. Mm-hmm. Picking up your golf balls gives you time for reflection on what you're doing.
Yeah.
I will say I don't do it as often as I should, but I enjoy. There's a piece to picking up your golf balls.
Absolutely. I still do that. The flicking the ball up and into the bag in one hand, as you've hit to whatever target and you're picking them all up. It's a great time. That is it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's you're daydreaming about potential what can be. You're analysing what's gone on. You're thinking about what to do next. It is something that, and maybe we alluded earlier on that there's not enough what I would call players in the game of golf, because they are practicing on driving ranges. If you're practicing picking up your golf balls, there's a certain, the artistry comes into it. You know where you've hit them, you know what you're doing, you understand a lot more. There's more feedback. So I do. I pick up my own golf balls at times, and it's. I hate to say this, I used to find my golf balls that I used. I'd search for golf balls. It brings back the same feeling when I'm picking up the balls like that, or when it kills me walking along a golf course and I see golf balls in the shrubbery or the water creeks, and I'm going, I actually want to go down and pick them up.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story. The friend of mine who was the photographer for Golf Digest did a swing sequence of Michael Jordan once. And he'd whacked away maybe a dozen balls, and they were done. And Jordan says to him, "Are you going to pick up the balls?" And he goes, "Well, no, you can have them if you want." And he drove down in the cart and picked them up. Michael Jordan.
There you go. Yeah, I look. It depends where you're coming from. Really, it's not where you are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. But anyway, talk to me more about Bob. I mean, I knew Bob well, but not as well as you did. But I thought he was a wonderful man. I mean, how would you describe Bob to people when they ask you about him?
As I said, he was the man you wanted to be when you were like he was older than me when you were that age. He was full of joy and just a great character to be around, great entertainment. And look, we're not mix it here. You know, Bob was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't work him when an alcoholic. I knew him when he was an alcoholic, and he was not somebody you wanted to be around when he was an alcoholic. He gave up the drink for his life and for golf. And for June, I assume the both of them did. And it's amazing how good a personality. He was just a great, funny man, entertaining, great to be around, and just loved golf all day. Golf. You know, we go practice for from 9 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the evening. We'd come home, we'd have dinner, and we'd put the golf on and talk about golf, watch golf. Now, he wasn't great. He wasn't a great fan. If you asked too many questions during the golf, he wasn't a great fan of that. He wanted, but it was just, he's just really nice person to be around. Great entertainment, and I said his passion for the game was. Look, everybody knows it was startling. He lived it, he loved it, and if they ever could write a book about the true stories about Bob Torrance, it will never happen. But to this day, when you meet a fellow Bob Torrance disciple, all we do is tell stories, and there's always a new story or a new bit. Even the old ones, they always sound just as good when you hear them again.
Yeah, what's your favourite one?
I only alluded to it because we just said it there. He had a Danish kid over.
Yeah, is this when he drugs the guy? This is my favourite as well.
Yeah, he put Prohypnol. So they practiced hard for 2 days. And madness for Bob, but he arranged for this guy to come over Wednesday, Thursday of the Masters. Obviously, the Masters comes on Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And this lad sits down and he starts asking questions during the telecast of the golf. So Bob is perturbed about this. He's done 12 hours in the range. He wants to watch the golf. So he comes up with an idea and he offers the lad a cup of coffee. And the lad says, that would be great. So he shouts at June, go make the coffee, as he would. And June goes out, but Bob follows him out and they decide to put a sleeping tablet into the coffee, which is actually Rohypnol. This is what a sleeping tablet was back then.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they crush it up and put it in. And Bob is thinking, that mightn't do it. So they crush up a second one and put it in the coffee. And put 2 into the coffee. And, of course, the lad drinks the coffee, doesn't know anything different. But within, 30 seconds, he seemingly is sitting bolt upright in the chair, but completely out of it. Like you can wave your hands in front of him. He's sitting upright, but he is gone.
Yeah.
And I think the first comment was, Bob to June, I think we've killed him. And June says, well, should we call the police? And Bob has gone, well, if he's already dead, it doesn't matter, so we just leave him there. So they put him to bed anyway. They obviously know he's dead. They put him to bed, and the guy wakes up the next day mid-afternoon. He wakes up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The next comes in, and Bob is sitting there, and he apologizes to Bob, sleeping it out, and to which Bob says, it's just the sea air up here in Largs. That lad was never the wiser on this story has got out. He's only found out 2 or 3 years ago what actually happened.
Right, yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. And it sums Bob up to a T, that. It really does.
He many amazing stories. That one is pretty, that one's fairly well out there now at this stage, that the sleeping tablet. But, there's lots like it, and I suppose some for not the airways.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm inevitably, Padraig, I'm going to turn to the Ryder Cup before we finish up here. You've played in a lot of teams, both amateur and professional. What have you picked up? What are the things that you've picked up by being part of teams over the years that you're going to bring to bear in your captaincy later this year?
When it comes to the Ryder Cup, obviously we've been doing very well in Europe, and I wouldn't be certainly not looking to change the format. We've kind really, since Monty in 2010, really it's been a gathering of what works, put it together, and avoid making the mistakes that have gone in the past.
Mm-hmm.
There are a collection of things that have happened and mistakes that that we now know, like Mark James not playing the rookies. That's just he took one for the team there. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the singles, keeping your best players for the end. These are very obvious things that don't happen anymore.
Yeah,
there are a few others that I personally have that I've picked up over the years that I have my notes from playing different Ryder Cups about a couple of players, and hopefully I will add a little bit more to the mix, as just a little bit, but I'm not changing anything. So there are one or two things, a couple of things that are relevant to rookies. Just a few things, but I clearly I'm not giving away any of my strategy until it's over. And then there are definitely one or two things that I see happening in matches and things like that. But the obvious stuff is the rookie sort of things from Mark James and leading out. If you got to win points, you can't keep your best players to the end of the road, or can you?
Yeah. Is there any, behind the scenes, is there any questions every 2 years about the number of points available and the number of players that have to play each time? Because, it's seen, I think, as to Europe's advantage that you're not playing everybody all the time. The President's Cup's a bit different in that respect. Has there been any pressure that you know of to change it?
I don't believe there's any pressure to change it, and I can't see Europe giving up that. That's the whole idea of the Ryder Cup. Unfortunately, it's not the under-8s where everybody wins a medal.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't get to play, and that's the difference with the Ryder Cup to the President's Cup. This is the whole concept of the Ryder Cup, and the whole difficulty is the 4 players who don't play each session. If everybody played, and we'd all get a little rosette saying we all competed at the end of the week and be all very happy days, but it wouldn't be the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, it adds to the captaincy, that though, doesn't it? I think there's more to the captaincy in the Ryder Cup than in the President's Cup because of that.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. This is hardest part, is managing your 4 players who are sitting out a session and trying to keep everybody focused on the one goal of the team and winning, and explaining to those 4 guys that the classic, you're not being dropped, you're being rested. And this is played hugely into the European favour. There's no doubt about it, and not based on 12 against 12, because I think Europe has the days are gone where Europe feels like we're weaker players.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case anymore. But it definitely plays into the European team psyche that the players who aren't playing can handle the fact that they're not playing, and that they're that side of things, that it's about the team and not the individual. Whereas if everybody plays, it does turn into your under-8 football where everybody gets patient.
Yeah, you've been that assistant captain who's had to, I'm assuming, that's been assigned to look after the guys who are not playing in a particular session. What is the role that the vice captain plays in that instance?
Well, I think first and foremost, it starts well before the 4 guys. It's telling the 4 guys that they're not playing. How do you get that information across in a timely manner that they're not hearing it from somewhere else, which has happened in the past?
Mm-hmm.
And then once they're not playing, it's providing them with the information for when they're going to play next and keeping them up to date with what's happening. I think players are all self-managed in their general golf life, and they crave quite a bit of information and what's happening. Gone are the days, I think, certainly in my first Ryder Cups, I don't think it happened to me now, but certainly I would have said before my time, players found out from the media whether they were playing or not playing. More likely not playing. So you got to. It is definitely the 4 players not playing is every bit big a strategy as the 8 players who are on the golf course, and it wouldn't be a Ryder Cup if it wasn't that way. And it's nothing to do with, as I said, Europe is good enough now. Maybe back 30, 40 years ago, we wanted to hide a weaker player and why it was that way, but not now. It's nothing to do with that. It's more to do with how do you manage your team, and it also gives which I will say, it gives you the advantage of playing to your strengths in terms of foursomes and 4-ball, whereas it's quite possible you could have a couple of players in your team that are just not suited to foursomes, and it's certainly very possible that you'll have some players that are more suited to 4-ball, and it allows you to play into those strengths, and it gets the team, as you said rightly, it gets the team and the team captain, makes it much more important how you go about things. Whereas if everybody played, sure, if everybody played, we just take it off the top 12 in the world rankings, and we let one play one, work away like that.
Yeah.
You don't need a captain or vice captains. Just let them go on.
Yeah. I mean, the European teams over the last 25 years or whatever, they've done a great job of maintaining the all for one kind of philosophy, and we don't hear about there are things that have come out afterwards. I mean, Faldo's captaincy being the sort of prime example, but even then the players have never really thrown Nick under the bus, despite what went on. But there are things that go on behind the scenes. I mean, it's perfectly natural where you've got 12 big egos and all, etc., etc. But the Europeans do a great job of maintaining a united front, if you like, at least publicly. I mean, there's very little that I've heard of, even doing my job. I mean, I've heard of the odd thing, but nothing major that would affect the team's performance. I think they do a fantastic job in that respect.
I do think the European team has a common purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal for the European Tour, and any player who's come up through the European Tour realises how much it means to the rank and file of the European Tour. And I don't just mean the South Africans, the Australians, the Asians playing in Europe. The fact that we can go and win the Ryder Cup gives a lot more credence to the standing of the European Tour. So we have that common purpose. We will get behind it. Famously, I wouldn't have gone on. Myself and Sergio wouldn't have gone on great over the years, but at the Ryder Cup, we hug at the Ryder Cup. So because of that common purpose, we're not going to let anything get in the way of that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that over the years that one person can get the grump for a day or two or be upset with another person in the team, but nothing gets in the way of where the team is going. The team does have that very much common focus of this is our big chance to prove that the European Tour is every bit as good as the PGA Tour when it comes to golf. And it gives us that, we're a little bit like the country cousin, and we've got a point to prove. We've a chip on our shoulder, and it keeps us going in the right direction.
So we can expect to hear you saying that you're the underdogs again this year.
Should we have to?
Yeah.
We're look. It's a very strong US team. Is it the strongest team they've ever had?
Close to it, I would think.
They're on home soil. No matter what we look at it, we're going to have definitely a reduced European contingent. So yeah, it's to try and win away from home is a bit of a you're looking for. Yeah, it's incredibly hard to beat the US in the US.
Well, it doesn't happen very often that the away team wins. You look at the last few results. I mean, Medina is the one that sticks out, but other than that,
What was Medina called?
The Miracle. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, look, I don't think I don't. I won't say I don't think. I think it takes a miracle for Europe to beat the US on a stereotypical US golf course. So if we were going to Valhalla, Hazeltine, places like that, that is not where we need to be. Whistling Straits gives us a fair crack at the whip here. We have. It should be a nice balanced golf course, and we'll try and make the best of our team to really put it up to the US and make them, if they come out and play their golf and prove it, well, we'll shake their hands on the Sunday and say, well done.
Yeah. How much do you be studying the statistics? I mean, this has become a big thing. I mean, I was at the last President's Cup, and it was a huge thing for the international team. I mean, Ernie was picking the orders and who played with who, and everything was statistically based. I mean, that seemed to me a little bit extreme, but what's your feeling on that?
I'm middle ground on that.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lovely balance in our vice captains last time. It was really interesting to see the five vice captains. I'm not going to say who.
I was going to ask you that. Who's next? But you're not going to tell me. So.
No, but in the five vice captains there the last time, you definitely had like one who was extreme, really into the stats, and you had another who was way out, completely emotions, forget the stats, and then you had others in the center. So it was quite interesting to see the different ways of doing it. But I would consider I'm in the center. I would, I'd pick a guy who was playing badly to play a match if he was winning. I'd rather see a guy win who's playing badly than a guy playing well and losing. So where does that? Winning is a habit. So if it's an interesting one. So if you got a guy who won the morning match and he played badly but won, and you got another guy who played well but lost, who'd you go with in the afternoon? Yeah. The stats would always say go with the guy who played well and lost. Well, I would believe winning is a habit. You can only win the game that's in front of you. You can't be asked to win another game. So playing badly and winning, that's all. Can you be asked any more than that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of the same. I think it should be a mixture of the two.
It has to. But that's the quandary exactly in that statement. Do you pick a guy who's played well but lost, or a guy who played badly and won?
Yeah, I mean, my mind goes back to my time of playing amateur golf, and I was the victim and the beneficiary of both both sides of that equation, if you like. I'd played well and lost and got to play again in the afternoon, and I'd played badly in the morning and won and got to play again. It's weird how captains look at these things. Yeah,
they didn't have the information back then.
No, of course not. No,
it would have been very emotional to the results and what they saw the last couple of holes or last shots.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
and I was going to say, how about the role of the assistant captains? I mean, you've been an assistant captain more than once. How important is that role, and how much will you lean on your guys?
The assistant captain is very important. All of them. The captain can't be everywhere. There's too much going on. There's a lot of stress, and I think that is crucial for us, the assistant captains, and how you go about things. And definitely not from McGinley's 2014, didn't learn a lot on that one because things went very seamlessly. But Darren's one in 2016, for sure, we were always trying to recover there. Obviously we had the incident before it started, and then we lost heavily the first session, and we were always trying to play catch up there. Yeah. You learned a lot as vice captain. When things are going wrong, you learn a lot more. Mm-hmm. And I think myself and Thomas were vice captains there, and we were very well prepared in 2018 for those pinch points where you really have to make decisions under a bit of stress.
Yeah. How important is the course setup? I mean, my mind goes back to France, and I mean, Thomas's picks were sort of mildly controversial, if you like, when they were made. And then as soon as I got to the golf course and had a wee walk around, and I went, oh, it all made sense suddenly that he matched up the players that he picked with the way he knew the course was going to be. But the Americans, I was a little perplexed. I mean, you have to comment on this, but it did make me laugh when I was walking around and I saw Jim Furyk, Steve Stricker, Zach Johnson, and Matt Kuchar all standing in a row watching guys playing on that golf course, on a course that they would have been far better suited to. I mean, how important is the matchup of the player to the course in your mind, and how important is the course setup?
Well, I think like in 100 years' time, but not soon, there would be a neutral setup. But it's very hard for us to beat the US on the likes of Medina, Valhalla, that type of golf course where they'll set it up very fast greens, pretty open off the tee, soft greens, where 8 or 9 birdies are being made. You could make 8 or 9 birdies and lose a match.
Yeah,
it definitely in Hazeltine. Whereas in France, it's going to be hard for the US to beat Europe on a stereotypical course like France, where you've got to fight hard for your pars. And if you can shoot 1 or 2 under par, you're probably going to win your match, not 8 or 9 under. Mm-hmm. So we know that's our advantage. They know what's their advantage. So yeah, maybe a neutral setup down the road. And yes, if the system, the Ryder Cup, was looking for the 12 best players, which always freaks me out. I have around that, the commentators will always, pundits will always go, who should be picked 9, 10, 10, 11, 12 in my case.
Yeah.
They're always working on, you should pick the 9th or the 10th, 11th, the 12 best players. And you're going, well, if you were going to pick the next 3 best players, well, surely you should have just gone 1 to 12 in the world rankings. Mm-hmm. You're picking 3 players to complement the 9 who qualified.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it may mean that you could be one of the best players, one of the top 12 players in Europe, but unfortunately, the guy in 15th is going to make a lovely foursome partner for the guy who's qualified in 2nd place, and that's more important. And he's going to do a job. He'll balance up the enthusiasm or the experience. And you wouldn't know, because if you had no rookies, you probably would pick rookies. And if you've got plenty of rookies, you'll probably pick experienced guys. It's not to do with their golfing ability. It's to do with everything that goes with the pressure of being a pick, the golf course, and the guys who are already in the team that you're matching up for foursomes and fourballs.
Yeah, I mean, plus, and you're still, it's not an exact science we're talking about here. You're still going to have to be adaptable and react to circumstances and what people are telling you. I mean, I think Thomas Bjorn is on the record from the last time about Molinari and Fleetwood. I mean, they were going to play together, I think, and they were keen to play together, so he sort of went with that. He got talked into it, and was going to split them up or whatever, and it just kept going and going and going. And so you've got to be adaptable within a system, if you like.
Oh, of course, yeah. There's lots of things going on during the Ryder Cup, and that's why I'm saying you do need your vice captains, because when you say being adaptable, you want to have the options on the table, because you move one player, it can affect 3 or 4 groups, because you've taken him from one position, and then you realize actually if you take him out of that group, the guy who's left is actually a better match with a guy who's actually sitting out that session. So we're actually going to bring another guy back in. It can affect quite a number of partnerships. Just one person, like you simply have a good player that you need to rest in terms of physically rest, and it changes lots. And that's why you need the vice captains, so that they have those options there and ready and prepared, so that you're not winging it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was Monty that had. I think he admitted that he'd written down the team that he would like ideally months before and put it in a drawer somewhere. I'm imagining that you're not the type of guy that would do that. But what sort of formation is there a formation forming in your mind without obviously going into detail?
Yeah, with a year to go, I told everybody to do it on social media or whatever, just for but I didn't do it. I wouldn't write down who I want in, or I'm going to get what I get. I'm not. There's plenty of options. We're looking at already. We can see the matchups. there's not going to be a lot changed in my team at this stage. There's 9 guys in at the moment. I know it's double points, so it'd be unlikely if one guy comes in and out of that 9. So mostly people are playing to impress me and get the pick. I will say there is double points from now on, and like double points the last week in Wentworth. So like they'll be close to 120 points, world ranking points that week in Wentworth for the winner, when 300 points get you into the team.
Yeah.
So somebody could make a big push, but I'd be delighted if they did, because they'd be in good form. So, and as I said, there's nothing better than current form. So it's up in the air. But as I said, I've only got the 3 picks, which narrows down what I can do when I get them, which is the way I wanted it. Too much variety is God. There's so many options. Whereas, right now I've probably got about 6 or 7 experienced guys and about 4 rookies that you would be looking for those picks.
Yeah.
4 or 5, about 4 or 5, 6, about 6, something like that. It might be the other way around, but unless somebody comes out of the blue outside of that, it's reasonable for me what's ahead of me. Put it like that. There's nothing too dramatic, but maybe, as you said, nearly every Ryder Cup somebody comes from nowhere.
Yeah, well, there's always one surprising one. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And how much input do the senior players get? I mean, you've been a rookie, and you've gone all the way through to being one of the more experienced and certainly one of the better players in the team. I mean, how much input do they have with the captain, and how much will they have with you, I should say? The senior player, that's another thing with the Ryder Cup, which is crucial. We always had that with Monty. You need a leader on the golf course, and you need a leader in the locker room from the players. Mm-hmm. You need somebody that the team will want to follow. That was missing. You brought up 2008. That was missing definitely in Baldo's team. Mm-hmm. It's a strange one. Baldo picked Poulter that week, and it made Poulter's Ryder Cup career. Mm. And the Ryder Cup, Europe has benefited immensely from that. But that pick really should have, Darren Clark was the one that we needed in the team room that week. Yeah. The pick, which isn't it amazing how you go back? Like, it was obviously a great pick for Poulter. Poulter delivered on that week, and he has delivered ever since. Yet the team lacked. That was our first year without a Monty, and the team lacked somebody like that in the team room, who maybe was a bit more vocal and a bit more of a leader in that situation. Yeah, I mean, retrospect's always 2020, but I go back to 1999 and Mark James, and forget the not playing the rookies until the last day. I think the biggest mistake that he made was not picking Langer.
Of course it was.
Yeah, Langer would have been the extra body that you guys needed that week. He could have played once a day, and it would have made a huge difference to that team.
Absolutely. It was, look, in hindsight, it was like, how he didn't pick Langer. And I would have been very vocal at the last time. Sergio was in the same position to the team, and I was shouting as loud as I could that, look, we picked Sergio. We played in the first session Friday morning. Mm-hmm. You pick a rookie, is he going to play? Mm. Where you're trying to find somewhere to put somebody like with Sergio, he would be out, and Langer would have played first morning.
Yeah.
And guaranteed you would have put him in the lineup. And you shouldn't be, again, you get drawn into this, who should we pick, that's a good player or the better player. Who are you going to pick that's going to play the first session Friday morning? Think of it like Langer would. It was that's in the end of the day, that's what would if Langer was there, I guarantee he would have played first morning.
Yeah. Padraig, I have one more question for you. I'm aware we've been talking for an hour and a half now. How much pressure are you feeling? The captain, unfairly is
The winning captain is hailed as a hero, and the losing captain is hailed as a goat, if you like. How much pressure are you feeling on that respect? I mean, it's totally unfair and ridiculous.
It
but,
does,
but it is a fact of life, you know.
It does disturb me. Yes,
yeah,
yes, there's no doubt about it that we have seen captains win, and they've been, you know, they haven't been good captains, but
yes.
they get down, and we've seen some, you know, not talking necessarily our side, the other way around.
Yeah.
You know, I can only, you know, I suppose it's a bit like a lot of things. I can only do my side of it and do my thing, hold my head high and see what comes of it. But I am very aware it's a one and done. The result speaks volumes. When a captain wins, the media will ask, well, what did he do special? And people will put two and two together and find something. And clearly when a captain loses, the same thing, whether it's, you know, we've seen it with US captains particularly, and that the media will find, the media will ask the players, and the players will find, you know, they'll try and answer the question, and they'll have to find something, and you know, they'll put things together that even, you know, might or might not have been the actual root cause. But, you know, we're all looking for answers. We're all looking to, I judge people in my life. So, you know, that's it. At the end of the day, if I'm watching a soccer match, I'm going, what's the coach doing playing that guy? You know, so we never really know, but that's the way life is. We you know, it's entertainment, and, you know, we all go down to the, you know, watch a game, and we're our mates, and we're making complete comments, and that's, you know, all sorts of things. But do we really know? No. But the Ryder Cup, it is the tough side of it, that it is a one and done. Like, if, you know, if you were playing 40 matches in the season, you know, at the end of the year, you could be rightly judged because you've had a fair go at it. But one go, it's pretty tough to get your head around that.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables. And anyway, Padraig, thank you again. I always come away from our chats with two things. I'm always very appreciative of the time that you make available, and I always enjoy the chat back and forth. This has certainly been no exception. Thanks again.
Thanks, John. Bye.
Wow, what a mind. Wow, what a thinker. If there's any truth to the notion that an overactive brain is a detriment to good golf, then Harrington is clearly the exception that proves the rule. If you enjoyed that chat and you haven't yet done so, why not check out the back catalogue of episodes? We've featured everybody from Curtis Strange and Kari Webb to the R&A's Martin Slumbers and pioneering Yarra Yarra General Manager Andrea Watson. You can find all that by heading to the Golf Australia website, golfaustralia.com.au, and clicking on the podcast tab at the top of the page. Even better, subscribe through your preferred podcast app and make sure you never miss an episode. Now, you're going to want to do that, I think, because on our next, we chat with one of the game's most gifted and most respected course architects, Bill Corr.
I've yet to meet anyone who's played golf who hasn't at some point experienced the thrill of hitting one good shot. It's the hook.
That's episode 44, next time on The Thing About Golf.